Criminal Code of Cambodia, 2009, Penalties Applicable to Minors. Title 6. Penalties Applicable to Minors. Chapter 1. General Provisions. Article 160, Principal Penalties Applicable to Minors aged more than 14 years old. When the court decides to pronounce the criminal sentence against a minor aged from 14 years old, the principal penalties imposed for the offence prosecuted are reduced according to the following conditions. 1. The maximum of the penalty for imprisonment imposed is reduced into a half. 2. If the maximum of the penalty imposed is a life imprisonment, it is reduced to 20 years of imprisonment. 3. The minimum of the penalty for imprisonment is reduced into a half if the minimum is more than 1 day. 4. The minimum and the maximum of the fine are reduced to a half. In case of prosecution for a felony, if the provisions of this article result in reducing the maximum of the penalty of imprisonment imposed for a duration equal to or less than 5 years, the offence imposed remains a felony. Article 161, Additional Penalties. Only the following additional penalties are applicable to the minors. 1. The confiscation of any instruments, materials, or objects which have been used to commit the offence or have been intended to commit the offence. 2. The confiscation of the objects or funds with which the offence was carried out. 3. The confiscation of the incomes or the properties earned by the offence. 4. The confiscation of the utensils, materials, and movable objects at the place where offence was committed. 5. Prohibition against possessing or carrying a weapon. Article 162, Penalties for Community Work. The penalty for the community work is applicable to the minors of less than 16 years of age. However, the duration of the community work may not exceed 100 hours. The community work must be adapted to the minors, presenting a rehabilitating character and facilitating social reintegration. Article 163, Non-applicability of recidivism with minors. The provisions on recidivism are not applicable to the minors. Article 164, Benefits from mitigating circumstances. The mitigating circumstances are applicable to the minors. When the court decides on mitigating circumstances, the minimum of principal penalties imposed on a minor for a felony or of a misdemeanor is reduced according to the following specific scales. 1. If the minimum of the penalty for imprisonment imposed is equal to or more than 10 years, it is reduced to 1 year. 2. If the minimum of the penalty for imprisonment imposed is equal to or more than 5 years and less than 10 years, it is reduced to 6 months. 3. If the minimum of the penalty for imprisonment imposed is equal to or more than 2 years and less than 5 years, it is reduced to 3 months. 4. If the minimum of the penalty for imprisonment imposed is equal to or more than 6 days and less than 2 years, it is reduced to 1 day. 5. The minimum of fine imposed is reduced to a half. Article 165, Separate Obligations in Probationary Suspended Sentence. In case of a probationary suspended sentence, only the following specific obligations are applicable to the minors. 1. Attending schooling or a professional training. 2. Residing in a designated area. 3. Submitting to medical checkups or medical treatment. 4. Repairing, in function of his/her resources, the damages caused by the offence. 5. Establishing proof that he/she has paid, in function of his/her resources, the amounts due to the state following his/her sentencing. 6. Not to appear in certain areas. 7. Not to appear at alcohol shops. 8. Not to associate with certain persons, in particular the perpetrator, the co-perpetrators, the accomplices, or the victims of the offense. 9. Not to possess or carry a weapon. Chapter 2. Separate Provisions. Article 166, Conditions for detaining minors in a prison. The jailed minors are detained in the special quarters, separated from the adults. They are subjected to a special and individualized regime that canvasses a place for education and professional training. The regime of detention is set out by a process of the Minister of Justice and relevant ministers.